you obviously know Spotify because I saw it playing when we walked in.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we have someone from the motherland.
Yes. I'm very excited.
We are so on
Spotify
brand.
is the
Not
best
fun.
thing ever.
Well, can I tell you, we would love to be another Sweden in Australia because they are. Spotify just rocks in Sweden. Like 60% of the entire population are on Spotify.
Yeah.
Something like 97% of all 19-year-olds are on Spotify in Sweden. It's huge.
It's like really weird if you don't have Spotify.
Yeah, and we have a 50% conversion rate to pay from free to pay, which is huge. So you guys understand how we work? Yeah. Did you go through that in your preso? So maybe we'll just go through the basics.
Yeah.
So we launched Spotify in Australia about 2 years ago now. 2 years in May, and hasn't that gone very quickly? Born in Sweden about 5 years ago. The way that Spotify makes money is selling subscriptions. So you pay $11.99 a month in Australia, or you're on our free tier, which we monetize through advertising. And we're going to obviously walk through how brands work with us today, because we'll go through some examples. You actually sent through some questions you wanted answered as well. We've got those covered in here.
Yes.
I think we have anyway. So
unreliable one. Not
She's been very busy.
Here I am.
Spotify is doing incredibly well in Australia. In fact, we are kind of looked at by the rest of the world as one of the most successful country launches around the world, which is awesome. The uptake here has been huge. Although we don't give out numbers, I can tell you that around about 15 to 20% of the entire population of Australia have signed up for Spotify, which is huge and quite amazing just to achieve that within 2 years.
Is that geographically spread or concentrated?
Mainly concentrated on the eastern seaboard. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But again, very, very cool brand for brands to align with. Generally speaking, it's about 55% male, 18 to 24 is our core demographic.
Cool. So today, obviously with your questions in mind, I put together the following presentation, which is basically going to cover off who we are, where we've come from. It will cover a bit of what Kate was saying as well in regards to our history and why our founder actually launched the company itself. And then we'll go through the Spotify audience itself, because when we first launched we were using a lot of global data, but we've actually now conducted our first consumer research piece. So we actually know what the Spotify user is doing and who they are. We're also going to be conducting our second consumer research piece in May of this year to tie in with our second birthday, which will be taking a deeper dive into the millennials specifically and looking at how brands can specifically communicate with them and having an understanding of what's worked well from the platform and also what hasn't worked well, because I think from my point of view that has been as beneficial as what has worked well. So from our point of view, music has many, many different ways that it can make you feel. So whether or not it's your first dance at your wedding, whether or not it's the first, your running music, or whatever it may be, it creates different emotions within you. And from a brand's perspective, it's really, really important to take this into consideration when planning any campaign. So many brands don't have a specific music strategy. However, from an engagement point of view, it's a great way to communicate with consumers without actually going through the ins and outs of actually presenting a music strategy specifically. I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to data, and I was reading something the other day that said 96% of brands that have a song associated with their advertising have a much higher recall than brands that do not have.
Down, down.
Simple.
Diamond chopsticks in the 80s?
The what?
Diamond chopsticks with a little to your door. Diamond. You don't remember that?
No.
I'm old. I just did that. I did
I
that
think I'm
out
older
loud
than
in
you. I don't
public.
remember that.
But that's exactly what we mean. So there's so many brands out there that have quirky little songs that you have associated with them that obviously then have that recall. We're going to be going into a video next, which will basically cover off where we launched, where we've come from. This was actually done in November of last year, and there are a few changes, so I'll update you on those once it's run. I don't know if we've got sound, but...
Do you have a speaker?
I'll probably blow them on
You can
here.
hear it. Do you want me to feed it through TV? Is that not count? I can feed it through TV.
Are you going to have videos?
Two.
Yeah.
We launched in Sweden with our founder Daniel Ek, and he basically identified that consumer behaviour was changing. So it was moving from an ownership model to more of an access model. The music industry in Sweden was on a massive decline, and he presented to the labels his strategy in regards to how money was actually going to be given back to the industry. So he went to them with a model that was either going to be funded purely by advertising, so the listeners are going to be listening, the users are going to be paying through their ears, or through a premium model, which means that they'd actually be paying for their music rather than pirating. And as Kate mentioned, 60% of the Swedish population are now on the Spotify platform, and it's obviously our champion market. So from there you can see we actually launched in 28 countries by December of last year. We're now in 52 different territories, and that is a key thing for us as a company, is making sure that we're available globally on a local basis as well, making sure that we've got all the local licensing agreements and making sure that we've got all the relevant content for that territory that we're working in. So that's why some of these countries take longer to launch, because we need to make sure that everything is in place before we can actually launch, because we want to make sure that we're doing it the right way.
So Cass, just quickly, one of your questions was how do artists get paid? So you saw a number there of 500 million being paid out, I think that was the end of last year. Now it's 1 billion. So yeah, so just last year alone was $500 million. And so the artists get paid through their deals with the labels. So we have commercial arrangements in place with them, and we give them back 70% of everything that we make. So whether that's through premium subscriptions or whether that's through advertising on our free tier, 70% of everything, every dollar we bring in goes straight back out to the labels. So we are a very low margin business. But we don't pay the artists directly.
And it goes to the label and they distribute it.
Yeah. So we do cop a lot of flack for that. in
There's
the
a lot
media.
at the moment on Facebook pinging around royalties.
Is there? Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds more like labels being jerks than anything else.
Well, yeah, but we can't.
Yeah.
You know, we don't talk about that. But you know, but we are trying to be very transparent with the artists. We have artist pages now where they can go in, they can see how much money they're making per stream. We are very, very transparent with them. But unfortunately, there's still a lot of bad talk around. But you know, if you streamed a lot on Spotify, you earn a lot of money. A lot of money.
I think as well from an artist's perspective, a lot of artists see it as a great tool of breaking new markets. So the internet has essentially allowed artists from Australia or New Zealand to be noticed in the US that necessarily wouldn't have been identified because they haven't got the marketing funds to be putting behind them from the labels. So it's actually a really good marketing tool for them as well.
You look what happened to Lord.
Yeah.
Do you talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Proudly.
Yeah.
So here's a breakdown of our audience profile. As you can see, the average time spent on the platform is 109 minutes, which is massive. And from a brand's point of view as well, it means you've got a really engaged user that is listening to what the brand's saying. And I will probably repeat myself a million times saying this. Brands need to speak to the user in the tone that they want to be spoken to. They are opting in by listening to the advertising, and they know that they're going to be getting the advertising. So make it quirky, make it relevant, integrate call to actions, really, really simple things to integrate within the campaign, but things that really, really make a difference in the overall campaign results.
And only TV beats that as well in terms of engagement, so it's pretty amazing. Nearly 2 hours a day that they're actively listening on Spotify.
So as you can see, this is obviously a slight skew towards male, but I think the most interesting thing from our point of view is a core demographic of 18 to 24. So this is a very hard to reach audience group nowadays because they are being bombarded with different advertising messages, whether or not you're walking to work, whether or not you're on your mobile phone, whether or not you're watching the TV, wherever it may be. There's so many different brand messages that are being thrown at you. The good thing about the platform is you only ever get one advert at a time. So it means that any brand speaking to the consumer is getting 100% share of voice and it has that captivated attention of the audience that they're trying to speak to. All of our advertising, we can age, gender, time and location target. So all of that is pulled from the data using Facebook data. Obviously any location targeting is through IP address as well. So what does the audience do? So they're very much the early adopters. So who brands want to be speaking to? They have a lot of influence within their social sphere. So they're proud of the brands that they're engaging with and they're proud of the music that they're listening to. They like to be seen as a tastemaker within their own friendship group as well. And as you can see, they're always among the first to try new products. And therefore, for any brands that are trying to get any communication message or branding messages off the back of that, it's going to be amplified through social media without any additional spend having to go behind that. Because of our friendship with Facebook that we have, it means it's very easy to integrate any communication through Facebook or Twitter, and we strongly recommend integrating that with all campaigns as well. So whether or not it's dedicating a song to somebody, sharing a playlist, whatever it may be, it's a really, really strong way of getting the message out there. So here's a video on who, here's a video on who the user actually is. So this is from last year, and again we'll be doing one later this year. I can send this through as a PowerPoint presentation afterwards.
It's Black Hawk's landing at the
Is that landing on the roof?
Coming to get me out.
That'd be the hospital, wouldn't it?
Or the barracks.
No, it's the Black Hawk's landing at the barracks.
It was a medical one.
Oh, I'm wrong.
Who's got told?
I'll shut up now.
Yeah.
Great video, by the way.
Yeah.
So far, I've got to say, this is a killer presentation. The level of detail and polish you put into this is quite amazing.
Just for us, right?
You should show this to everyone.
Well, apparently we are.
I keep forgetting about that. As you can see, there is a lot of information, so I will send that through as a separate deck. But I think a lot of the key takeouts are probably the fact that our audience group can't necessarily be communicated through traditional mediums, so they don't spend so much time watching TV, which is massive for a brand. So I'm working with my colleague Danny Howe at the moment to pull a lot of data from Nielsen in regards to who the Spotify user is and other mediums that they can be captivated in, essentially, and how we can actually use those channels to help amplify any messaging. I think one of the other key things is obviously technology usage, so they're very much within the early adopter phase of technology, and it's quite interesting to see as we become more mature as a brand, how that actually starts to change and how the curve on that changes. Also disposable income, the fact that they are going to the gigs, they are spending money on going out, dining, being social.
It's because they're still at home with their parents. Freeloading.
Wouldn't you agree? So this leads nicely into this slide, which is probably my favourite slide we've got. So last year, we obviously can't claim that we broke Lord. However, one of he's an investor, is that correct?
Yeah, and he sits on our board.
And he sits on the board. So Sean Parker has a playlist called Hipster International, which has around 803,000 followers.
Do you guys follow it? No. It's really cool.
It is good.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think the purpose of it is to help new up-and-coming artists to actually get exposure through different channels. So by using this, he added the song Hipster International to the playlist, and you can see from the graph how it took off. And also the fact that it meant Lorde could get exposure into the Northern American market without actually having any funding from the labels to do that. She can then take that data back to the labels and say, right, there's a demand for me over there, this is obviously what's happening. And then obviously labels can then back any artists that they can see breaking into new territories. This is really interesting for us as well because we have so much data that's available to us as a company in regards to user behaviour, what artists are trending in certain areas, and it means from a label's perspective, they're then able to invest in tours and make sure that the artists are going to the relevant areas, whether or not it's Northern Australia, Southern Australia, Eastern Territories, wherever it may be, and actually put money into actually helping the artists break those areas. So this is a really, really interesting case study for us. And as Kate mentioned earlier, we've now got a dashboard that's available to the artists, so they can see the streams, see where people are listening to their music, see how it's being shared, what social networks are being used to amplify it, and everything else. Please stop me if you have any questions at any point as well. So on the 11th of December last year, it was probably one of the most exciting days of my career at Spotify. We launched a mobile-free product, which is massive for brands. It means that brands can now communicate with the Spotify user throughout the day on all devices. So we launched with an Audio Plus product, which means that throughout the day or throughout the users listening, they'll be given 2 to 3 minutes of advertising per hour. So this is basically the breakdown of how it works. Have you all seen the product, or were you aware of it? No?
No, I don't think so.
So, many of you on premium, or are you on free?
I'm on
Premium.
You're all on premium.
I'm a
Okay.
chipset, sorry.
Have you seen the mobile free product yet?
Yes, I have. I've got plenty of questions.
Oh,
Don't you
no.
worry, I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to music and streaming, so...
I don't know if you've got the right people here for that one then.
I'll just write down my questions now.
Yeah, go for it. So this was massive for us as well because of the way our business works, we obviously have to give 70% of all the revenue back to the labels. The premium tier for the labels is one of our strongest revenue streams, which meant that we had to really defend why we'd want to launch a mobile free product. So the way that we've worked it, it's slightly different to the premium product, and you cannot listen to your playlist in their entirety. So you can only skip a playlist up to 3 times, and it means it's more of a leaning back service rather than a curation sitting forward service to what we offer on the premium platform. All of the ads are 100% viewable, and once it's played in your ear, the user will then be asked to click on the advert for it to expand into a full screen. I've got some examples later on which you'll be able to see. Spotify custom audio production is something really interesting. So we can work with a third-party company based in the UK to actually help produce specific audio ads for Spotify. Because one of the problems we have sometimes is using radio creative, and the tone's quite different to that of the audio ads that should be used on Spotify. So rather than shouting for the user's attention, rather than trying to speak to them in a certain tone and make sure that it's targeted as well, we make sure that we produce all the adverts that are going to be relevant to the campaign. Frequency cap is 3 per day, and obviously we've got higher click-through rates than industry average because it's very unique in what it does. So, this is basically touching on what I was saying. So you can sit back, you listen to your playlist, and you can skip up to 3 songs. So in regards to the way you're using the mobile, is that what you find? Is it more of a lean back experience, or how are you?
Look, to be honest, I use Spotify during the day, so I'm at my computer, and I use it at night time when I'm blogging at my computer at home.
Okay.
In terms of on the go, not particularly, though I would use it now in preference to songs loaded on my iPhone while riding motorbike. So previously I would have, if I went on a full day motorbike ride, I would have iTunes go and just shuffle iTunes songs. Now I think I'd stream.
It would kill a lot of your data though, wouldn't it?
Because you can save your playlist to offline mode.
Oh, okay.
So it means it caches up to 3,000 tracks on your phone, so it doesn't eat internal data.
So what
But you
download
have to
from
have
Wi-Fi?
the paid for product to be able to do that.
Right, okay.
Data, I'm not so, battery life, I think it's quite good on battery life. Data I'm not so worried about. But just to not have, it's amazing how quickly you get tired of like 1,000 different songs on your phone.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Yeah.
Christ, not this song again.
Yeah.
And just to have the sort of sort of curated content. Oh, haven't heard this one before. This is really cool.
And I love the fact that you might be talking about that holiday you had back in whatever year it was, and you're like, remember that song, and you just instantly play it.
Yeah. Look, I got to ask because it's killing me. Like you went, you launched this 2 weeks before iTunes Radio. Is that right? Am I getting the?
So we launched on the 11th of December last year, and iTunes Radio launched.
January?
Yeah, I think it was the beginning of January, mid-January.
It's so because Jackson and I have spoken about this. Was that coincidence that you just happened to launch it a month before Apple did?
No.
Was
We were
that-
just trying really hard to get
Did you see
licenses
something?
through.
You must have seen something coming, right? Because it was
Oh,
there
yeah.
that Apple are going to do something.
Yeah, well, they were
audio,
rumoured to do it.
audio.
No,
Or is this a
no.
different thing?
iTunes Radio. Apple just
Okay.
done iTunes Radio.
Yeah.
Because didn't audio and Spotify launch a little bit at the same time as well?
Did
Yeah.
they?
Yeah, I think so. There was
I think audio were before us. We were quite late.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Again, it all comes down to the licensing and label agreements. Until everything is in place, we can't do anything. So this was being worked on for years, wasn't it? And I think, so there's so much research done on how users were actually listening to Spotify on the mobile devices and trying to come up with a way that we could work with the labels to make sure that it's still going to be monetized for them. I think it was identified 60% of users on the mobile platform actually will hit a playlist and just listen to it as it goes through rather than actually skipping songs or making sure that, so the order of the playlist isn't as important to them as what they're actually listening to. So that's how we managed to try and come up with the idea of this concept.
Well, as a consumer and as somewhat of a music snob, what I saw from my personal perspective was you guys kicked Apple's butt, it would seem to me, because you did the same as they did, but like a month earlier. And I got to say, their playlists are god awful.
Yeah, everyone's saying that.
Like they would, I put on my Facebook wall like a week ago. I started listening to Kraftwerk, which is obviously a specific type of music, and within 2 songs I was listening to Wham.
Yeah.
And it's like, sorry, how did you make that connection? Wham from Kraftwerk.
This is actually a really interesting, because I was having this conversation with somebody the other day about data and how from the time that we started, obviously we've got access to the data and we know what the user is listening to. So we've got all of that data on what the
But so's
user's
Apple,
doing.
they've got iTunes data going back a decade or something.
But once you've purchased that album, they then suffer to, or they not suffer, they don't know
don't
what
know how
the
often they
user's
play
actually
it.
doing with it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
Very true.
past the purchase point, they don't know what that user's doing. They don't know if they're listening to the album in entirety, they don't know if they're skipping, they don't know if they're listening to the song in full.
They don't know
Whereas
the most
we-
popular track on any album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't know where it's being listened to.
I just, my my takeaway from the whole experience was, for a company that says think different, their radio product is incredibly not different. In fact, it's not even as good as. So I was a little bit disappointed.
Did you see press coverage the other day from...
The only review I read was, interestingly enough, I'm not sure where it was, but they did exactly what I said. The guy said, I'm into 70s rock, so let's give both of the platforms a try. Here's Spotify, and he chose like the Eagles, for instance, and then he listed like the 6 tracks that it chose after that.
Yeah.
And it was like the Spotify one was like, hey, pretty good, yeah, like that. And then he went to Apple Radio and did the same thing. It was like Eagles, and within 3 songs it was playing, oh God knows,
Spice
polka
Girls.
or something. And it's like, you know, call me crazy, but I don't really think that the songs that the Apple Radio has chosen would be, in anyone's world, you know, a subset of the Eagles. It's like they're just randomly picking songs, or they just said, play top 40 from that year.
Yeah.
And so you get some really whack choices.
I think that's why data is so important.
Yeah, I
and
agree,
especially
yeah.
having an understanding of who the user is, what they're doing, and when they're listening to that music as well. And that ties in really well for brands. So if you know a user is exercising, that's a great time for Reebok, Adidas, Nike, whoever it may be, to be communicating with them and saying, right, okay, we can help you with your workout, we can give you music, we can give you your trainers, we can give you whatever it is, and then actually communicate that through that channel as well.
The algorithm's quite amazing as well, so it's also done on beats per minute in the music.
So I'll cover off each of the individual formats. You've probably all heard the audio ads that are running. Have you got the premium or the free tier in the office?
Premium.
Yeah, premium.
Okay. So this is a great example. This actually is from the UK. So it's for Clippers Green Tea. Simple call to action, asking the user to do something targeted to females. I think it was between 10 and 12 o'clock. So when you're thinking about your morning tea break, and this is basically what happened.
So I just read from the script, do I? And they click on that picture of me for their free tea, do they? Wow, okay. Hello, I'm a box of Clipper Green Tea, packed full of lovely antioxidants. And if you click on the cup at the bottom there, you'll get 10 free Clipper Green Tea bags and 30p off your next box. Click before 2 p.m. and we'll pop it in the post today. Say hello to Clipper. We're natural, fair and delicious. Is that okay then? Should I put a kettle on?
Very personal, soft tone, asking the users to do something and giving them something back. And I think that one in the UK was getting a 3.5% click-through rate because the woman or whoever it was speaking to was actually being asked to engage with that advert. The amount of times, if I'm asked on Spotify to do something to engage with the brand or to check out for more information, I will actually engage with the advert because I feel like I'm being asked to do something from that brand. So the next one's obviously leaderboards, guys, NPUs. We all know what these are. Again, touching on all of our advertising, you've got 100% share of voice. Only one ever advert served at a time, and it's displayed for 30 seconds. So very simple but effective. Billboard units act as a screensaver. So again, because of the fact that we know what the users are doing, it means that we can ensure no wastage on any advertising. So if the user's inactive on the platform, all other advertising will be cut off and the billboard will be served. Once the user then interacts back with the platform, the billboard will retract back down into one of the other display formats, meaning it's clickable. Until they click on either the banner or the skyscraper, the click will not count. So interacting with the billboard itself does not count as a click. Here's an example of that as well. It should be.
God, we're stuck in a loop.
Please don't do this to me because I don't know much about technology.
I want to drink a Coke and buy a phone.
Doesn't matter, we get the drift.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening with that one, sorry. Homepage takeover units, so great for film launches, any high impact campaign launch dates that you want. Integrated video now as well, so TVCs, anything can be integrated within that. And for any integrated campaigns, it means that we can run trailer clips or anything that we want to actually promote the API integration or the integration itself. Lightbox, this is my favourite. So using all display formats, Lightbox can be used and anything can be hosted within it. Interactive video games, again TVCs, the film launches, and it's a great way of keeping the user within the Spotify platform.
If you weren't there, click the Levi's logo in your Spotify player now to watch all the highlights.
So this was actually live streamed. So Levi's ran a campaign in the UK where you could choose the warm-up act for Primal Screen. So they were going to have a Primal Screen gig at Brixton Academy. They ran a campaign on Spotify and with Clash magazine to help all of these up-and-coming artists then get voted and actually perform before Primal Screen, which obviously as an up-and-coming artist is massive.
And then vote on the set list as well. So they played in the exact order what people had voted on.
Which then takes us on to Spotify integrations. So out of the formats that we run on the platform, audio is without a doubt our champion product. And as much as some brands say, oh, isn't it annoying, the user is still opting in to listen to the advert. They have the choice to pay for the premium. So they're actually choosing to listen to the advertising on there, unless you're the type like you say that you may be. So that takes us one step further, which moves us into the Spotify integrations. So using our API, and there's a number of brands over here that are now starting to use this in a really, really creative, informative way. It's a great way to get music within a campaign without actually having to go through all the licensing and label agreements, but also giving the users a musical experience and enhancing their Spotify experience. So this is a campaign for Skoda. I'll give a rundown after the video.
Skoda have the perfect family cars. Spacious,
You might remember this
value
one.
for
When
money,
did you
and
move over?
lots of cool functions that would cost a fortune with other car brands. The
3
only
years
sad
ago.
part is
Maybe.
that to really enjoy them to their full extent, you need a family. So, caring as we are, we decided to help everyone who doesn't have a family to create one. Allow us to present the Family Composer, a dating site that helps you find the ideal person to start the perfect family with. So, what is the simplest way of finding a person you have something in common with? Through music, of course. Something that engages and interests everyone and instantly says something about who you are and what you identify with. It's really quite simple. You logged in using Facebook and dragged and dropped the playlist from Spotify. Within a few seconds, you had the answer to who is your best match. Once you've found someone interesting, you can invite them to go on a test driving date in one of Skoda's family cars. We even gave tips on stuff to do on your date, like romantic picnic destinations, grocery shopping, or going to house viewings. All so that you know what it would be like to start a family together. But hang on, did we really think people were going to start having new families left, right, and centre just to buy a Skoda? Well, of course not. But the people we needed to speak to were young, just about to start a family, and with no real interest in cars. So what we did was find a connection to a topic that engages pretty much everyone, music and love, ties in with a positive brand experience, and at the same time communicate that Skoda has the perfect family cars. Suddenly, people were talking about Skoda as a fun and perfect family car, and we had reached the goal of the campaign, to make people see Skoda as a brand that they can identify with, and a great option when they need it.
Quite a risky campaign. I don't know how many brands out there would be prepared to take that risk. But I think the key thing from my point of view is the fact that it's taking a product that millennials aren't necessarily going to be thinking about, but making it relevant to them at that time. And it's a very, very clever way of doing it. Integrating Facebook, something they're always, and also using music, so a key passion point for them. So yeah, that's one of my favourites, I think. So the next one is actually Bacardi Bus. So Bacardi came to us in the US, and they decided that they wanted to help us to reposition them as more of a social drink rather than a drink that you only drink when you go to the club or if you're out late at night. So they came up with an idea of sponsoring a big green bus and taking it around to all of the different festivals in the US, having different bands performing on there and actually allowing the bands to perform songs that you want. So there's an interactive board on the side, literally by the TV, where you can upload the songs that you want the artist to be playing. Meanwhile, you're obviously drinking your Bacardi. So there's a nice little case study on this one. Our aim is to get the bus over here, if you've got any brands that want to do it.
And the money.
Yeah, it's fake grass, super hot outside, and lots of nice people.
Why can't you use most people?
It is always better when there's
So that is a really good example of how all of the different departments within Spotify can work together. So that would have involved marketing, labels, PR, advertising, all coming together and actually coming up with a concept that was then pitched to Bacardi, and that's what came to fruition. As I said, if we can get the boss over here, that'd be fun.
Mm-hmm.
The last one that I've got is a Cooper's case study. So Cooper's came to us at the end of last year, and they were looking to try and do an on-premise activation as well as an actual digital campaign. So they decided that they were going to use Spotify Premium as to incentivise both bar staff and the consumer to purchase Coopers. So they had campaigns running internally where the bar staff were encouraged to obviously talk about Coopers, upsell Coopers to the beer drinkers. Meanwhile, the consumers could go in, pick up a coaster, scratch it for their chance to win Spotify Premium, which they were then driven to a microsite where they were to choose their favourite all-time Australian song. That's correct, isn't it, the campaign?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is basically how it worked.
Coopers is Australia's largest independent brewery and is still within the Coopers family. With a rich history and a loyal fan base, it's part of Australian culture. However, with the rise in popularity of new craft beers and a generation of drinkers discovering exotic beers, Coopers was under pressure. How do we reintroduce the iconic and original pale ale to a new generation of drinkers? Through the grandest Australian pub tradition, music. Like Coopers, music has been part of Australian pubs for a long time, and it was a pillar we knew we could utilise by leveraging Spotify, the #1 music platform within this demographic, to help Coopers Pale Ale become the first beer of choice for a new generation. Spotify partnered with Coopers to give away 1,000 premium Spotify memberships via an on-premise promotion that was promoted in pubs and clubs across the country. We created a sea of green with local pubs and clubs with an unprecedented number of trade customers jumping on board to be part of the promotion, thanks to the familiarity with both the Coopers and Spotify brands. To enter the promotion, all customers needed to do was buy Coopers Pale Ale on tap. They then received a coaster that contained a unique code and a QR code. By scanning the QR code, they were taken to a mobile optimised site where they entered their unique code to see if they were in the winner. They logged in with Facebook and were emailed their Spotify Premium membership code instantly. At the second level of promotion, Coopers wanted to prove that they're passionate about Australian music. So using Spotify's playlist functionality, they created the Coopers Great Australian Playlist. Coopers let audiences vote for their favourite Australian song of all time on their website, using the Spotify API to help shape the playlist of the leading 25 songs. Coopers drinkers voted for more than 500 different songs, with the playlist changing in real time, so our audience can stay up to date with which songs were in the lead. Coopers seeded the playlist out socially, so even those who weren't participating in the promotion could stay up to date. The campaign was a resounding success. Coopers received 13,449 unique entries, and the website received 19,000 visits. 13,000 of these were unique. 388 premises took part in the promotion across the country, and as a result of the promotion, on-premise sales of Coopers Pale Ale rose by 14%. And the question you're dying to know the answer to, the #1 Australian song, as voted by Coopers drinkers, was Cassie by Of course, Spotify.
What can you say?
So I think that's a really good example of how sales can be increased, but also by incentivising through Spotify Premium. The other thing I was going to touch on before with the Lord example was obviously a great example of how a person could be a social influencer within the music industry. But what it also means is brands can also have that opportunity to become an influencer through music without actually asking or going through the licensing and label agreements. And they can have music added to any branded playlist that the user is then going to associate with that brand afterwards. So the branded playlist will then be hosted within the Spotify user's library, and it means that you can then refer back to it, having that permanent communication going on after the campaign finishes. There's a number of different ways that our API works as well. So you can generate songs off the back of it, so we can actually give the user our recommendations, or alternatively we can analyse their music taste and give them something in return. So we've had a number of film clients that have used, so Snow White's the one that I'm thinking of on the top of my head. So it was basically drag and drop onto your playlist. Our API would analyse that music that was in your playlist and in return give you the character that you identify most with from the film, and also give you a branded playlist in return, so that's going to live throughout the life of the campaign. But I I can give you more information on all the API stuff. So what working with us looks like. So we've got a very unique audience in the fact that they're millennials that want to be communicated with through advertising. We can allow brands access to all of the music that we've got available on the platform, which is 24 million songs. And we've got unlimited creativity. Well, I try to have unlimited creativity sometimes. So just basically fire across any questions that you have, any brands that you're working on, even if you want me to reach out to the production team in the UK to get some ideas for audio examples, anything that you guys may need. And that is it.